ordinance succeeds and it's a complete ban, then the job is done.
Yeah, so we're on the same page.
I think we're on the same
Good.
page.
Good.
And the application, well, we have to properly handle every application, but we believe that application is appropriate to table after the public has had the opportunity to vote. Otherwise, we would be usurping the public's opportunity
Right.
to vote on this and going forward with that. Let's allow the process that you've already started to follow through. Let's allow the public to vote.
Just out of curiosity, what happens if the moratorium lapses? Right, so, again, probably you'll take care of that, it's probably not an issue, but if it did in fact lapse, so what's the worst case scenario, what could happen?
I think there's probably two ways to answer that. So, first of all, from the state perspective, the state has to license these businesses. And so, the state may or may not license a business within Ridgefield. We can't control the state licensing process. But in terms of Ridgefield regulations, actually it was Mr. Carr, I have to give him credit, that spotted a very small subset of our medical marijuana regulation actually does prohibit.
You're right.
I can't be wrong about everything.
Yeah, and even, we didn't discuss this, by the way, when we did our moratorium.
Because I didn't see it.
There is language very, a bit buried, but it's in the medical marijuana section that prohibits the, I believe the words are the growth and distribution, I believe are the words.
For dispensing.
Or dispensing, thank you. Growth and dispensing of marijuana. These words are
I think
important.
it's recreational, I think it
Yeah.
says recreational.
It just says marijuana, I believe, in Ridgefield. Now, I've talked to Mr. Beecher. This is one of the three things that we asked Tom Beecher in the few weeks when we sort of needed to pull back and just understand what they're talking. So I talked to Mr. Beecher about, well, how does that regulation either help or hinder? How does it interpret it under the new regulations? And the answer is it's unclear, because that regulation was written, it uses the term marijuana, not cannabis, and cannabis is actually a wider set of businesses than marijuana. Because our regulation was written a long time ago. Or not, it wasn't actually that long ago, but it was just long enough ago that it's not written with the current statute in mind.
Right.
So the answer from Mr. Beecher was that it would be good for us to rewrite, basically, that regulation is interesting, but it's probably causing more question marks than answers for us going forward. So to answer your question, Sean, we think it's appropriate to either extend the moratorium and or pass a regulation to make things clear.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another.
Okay.
And Planning and Zoning Commission has every intention of doing that, and we're happy to take on the issue, but we don't think it's appropriate to take on the issue and kind of
Just
get the public all drummed up
Yeah.
at the same time that you're trying to do an ordinance.
Our
Right.
curiosity is in the Board of Selectmen establishing a policy,
Mhm.
which we were asked to do. The Planning and Zoning Commission seemed not 100% sure about that. Was there a reason or discussion about
I
that?
think the original reaction to the question was, is this policy conclusive? Does this mean, by virtue of you voting on policy, is that enforceable in some way? And-
Well, it's a policy, but it does not a policy does not preclude a Planning and Zoning Commission for establishing the regulation.
Right, so as you.
Ordinance does.
Exactly. If you voted for your policy, and to Mr. Connolly's point, if you had your policy in place and we let the moratorium expire, then as a community, we're collectively in an ambiguous legal spot. Because you do have this policy, but we don't have an ordinance, and we don't have a regulation.
Right.
And the statute says you need either an ordinance or regulation.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
the exact language, this is in 7.13B2. Dispensing and growing of recreational marijuana is also prohibited within the town of Ridgefield and shall not be permitted unless expressly authorized in these regulations.
Right.
Okay.
And it's the dispensing and growing marijuana, it's those three words that,
Well, recreational also, recreational marijuana.
but it's not.
And that will survive after the moratorium. The question is, would it prevent it if somebody brought in an application for a micro cultivator or something?
Right.
Could they do that?
And the advice of council is
Yeah.
that we would we would likely face a legal challenge on
I've
those
always been
words.
told that zoning is from the date of passage forward, but an ordinance is a law that covers anything that pre-existed as well, would be under the law.
So even a non-conforming pre-existing,
Use of marijuana, if we passed a law saying it's illegal in the town of Richfield, absolutely. And we ran into this, if you recall, when we had the issue of the horses in downtown.
Yes,
And
right.
from a zoning perspective, they could not stop that person because it was pre-existing.
right?
If they passed a regulation, it would be going forward. We passed the ordinance because it would cause that particular situation to have to cease. That was the only way we could do it.
I learned something, that's good, thank you.
Yeah, we both did.